This is dedicated to my late dearest mother, who in 1975 informed me that she had unmistakably seen a flying saucer that year in 1975. Hello, my name is Norio Hayakawa. There's little doubt in my mind that the United States government and the military have been just as perplexed about the UFO phenomenon as the public all these years. There's also little doubt in my mind that all the while they have also been convinced that the puzzling phenomenon, much to their relief, has never posed any direct national security threat whatsoever. Under these circumstances, it is also my belief that they have even benefited, strange as it may sound, from a segment of the population's die-hard belief in the existence of actual physical UFOs and aliens. It is quite possible that several governmental agencies may even have planted moles in the so-called UFO community, again strange as it may sound, to even promote and encourage beliefs in such. This may all sound quite contradictory, but this has even led some researchers, including myself, to speculate that the government, or those who influence and may even control our government, could benefit from this kind of belief held by such segment of the public, and in the future could even develop and utilize technologies that may enable it to even stage a deceptive, artificial, extraterrestrial threat to create panic, should such needs arise, in order to accelerate and enforce global order of some kind, especially after a series of global political, economic, and social crises that many seem to envision. In 1993 and 1994, I had corresponded with a Canadian journalist by the name of Serge Monast, who came out with an allegation that NASA had a futuristic program called Project Blue Beam that will be utilized to stage a fake extraterrestrial crisis for global deception through tridimensional holographic projections together with advanced mind control technologies. In 1993, I came out with a 2-hour video entitled Secrets of Dreamland, in which I postulated just such possibilities. By 1993, a researcher by the name of William Bill Cooper also began to embrace this conspiratorial scenario. Besides the late William Bill Cooper and myself, here's a partial list of researchers who held or still continue to hold on to this theory, namely such as Anthony J. Hilder, the late Ted Gunderson, Alex Jones, Jesse Ventura, Clyde Lewis, and of course the late Serge Monast, to name just a few. As you noticed, most of these are not ufologists, but researchers who are largely convinced that the so-called UFO community has been infiltrated and duped by governmental agents whose primary goal, again strange as it may sound, is to promote and encourage beliefs in physical UFOs and aliens. Does this mean that the UFO phenomenon is not real? No, it certainly does not mean that. On the contrary, the UFO phenomenon is absolutely real. Even the world's foremost authority on the UFO phenomenon, Dr. Jacques Vallee, definitely states that the phenomenon is real. However, as he stated many times, we cannot hastily conclude that the phenomenon has anything to do with actual physical extraterrestrial visitation. Now, my late beloved mother had an incredible testimony of witnessing a flying saucer in 1975, as I stated in the beginning. Because of my fear of public ridicule, I have not told this true story publicly before, except to my closest friends. It is only just fairly recently that I have decided to go ahead and share this with the public. My beloved mother passed away a few years ago in Yokohama, Japan, at the age of 88. One of the most fascinating things my mother had ever told me happened one clear, cloudless day in the spring of 1975. I was at that time living in Phoenix, Arizona. I remember receiving from her a most interesting letter. I could see her excitement in that letter. She wrote to me that, in that letter, saying that about 10 days before, she had distinctively observed a silver, metallic, flying saucer-shaped object with a dome attached on top, hovering just over a crowded, elevated railway station, Kannai Station in Yokohama. It happened in broad daylight around 11:30 a.m. She described the object incredibly as a typical flying saucer, just as flying saucers have always been depicted in comic books or in science fiction movies. She said in the letter that it happened while she and her grandson were walking away from the railroad station and walking towards home to Motomachi area. She felt as if something had told her to turn around and look back toward the railway station. And Lord behold, right over the station, she suddenly saw this shiny, silverish, metallic, typical flying saucer with a dome on top, hovering over the station. She immediately pointed to her grandson to turn around and look. And at that very moment, the object was completely gone, vanished. The street was filled with people coming from and going to the railway station. She was so awestruck that she didn't even notice anyone observing the object, nor did she scream out and tell anyone near her to look. Now, my mother had always been skeptical and always used to ridicule my serious interest in UFOs, or flying saucers as they were called then, ever since my father had told me of his sighting of a strange greenish ball of fire slowly moving over Yokohama Bay one summer night in 1947 as he was night fishing, his favorite hobby of many, many years. I remember he swearing to me that the object seemed as if it were intelligently controlled or intelligently maneuvering. He said he had never seen anything like it before. My father had passed away in 1982. But getting back to my mother, her amazing sighting totally made her a believer. Now, do I believe her sighting? Absolutely. By all means, yes. I have the highest respect for my mother, and I totally believe what she said in the letter. So, I visited my mother a few years later, and she confirmed her sighting right to the detail. There's no doubt in my mind that she did see what she said she saw. But what do I think the flying saucer she saw was? Now, after more than 50 years of research behind the UFO phenomenon, I started my research in 1961. I have yet to come to any definitive conclusion as to what UFOs are. Is it a physical phenomenon? Or is it a religious apparition? I still have no idea. But I can definitely state that I believe my mother saw a flying saucer. This is why, when a group of experienced pilots and several United Airlines employees reported that they had witnessed a metallic saucer-shaped object hovering over Chicago's O'Hare International Airport in November of 2006, I believe, I truly believe that they did see what they said they saw, that is, a metallic saucer-shaped object and nothing else. Again, as to what flying saucers really are, I haven't the slightest idea, even after more than 50 years of research. During my 50 years of research, I have read hundreds and hundreds of sighting reports, analyzed hundreds of documents, seen many alleged footages of sightings, personally experienced a couple or three sightings which I could not readily explain, and I interviewed hundreds of eyewitnesses, including some so-called abductees, and traveled far and wide to many sightings locations and places of interest in both Japan and the United States. I even visited Mexico, Chile, and Argentina. Surprising as it may sound, after all these personal efforts of many years, I cannot even come close to stating what is behind the UFO phenomenon. It still remains a mystery to me. However, after all these years, the bottom line, in my view, is that we have yet to come up with a single, physical, solid, hard, tangible, publicly acknowledged, irrefutable evidence whatsoever that we have ever been or are being visited by physical, biological, extraterrestrial entities piloting or maneuvering physical extraterrestrial spacecraft of any kind. That is the bottom line. I'm not saying that the UFO phenomenon does not exist. In fact, I believe that the phenomenon is real. As I stated in the beginning, one of the most highly respected researchers in the world today, Dr. Jacques Vallee, also emphatically states that the phenomenon is real. However, Dr. Jacques Vallee cautions us, as I stated in the beginning, that we cannot assume that this phenomenon has to do with extraterrestrial visitations. I'm also simply saying that empirical science as we know it, and it is the only discipline available so far that we can rely on to determine the physical existence of a phenomenon, has not come up with any single concrete evidence to prove beyond a shadow of doubt that UFOs are nuts and bolts physical craft operated or manipulated and or occupied by physical, biological entities from advanced extraterrestrial civilizations. This is why I came to believe that the entire phenomenon could even be some form of a religious manifestation or a religious manipulation by a power which we cannot comprehend simply by physical pursuit. A power which apparently is capable of presenting an instant, but only temporarily, appearance or illusion of being a physical phenomenon to the observer. Some even suggest that it could even be a momentary holographic intrusion from some form of parallel intelligence. Some others even suggest that it could perhaps be some form of time slip or interdimensional accident. We just do not have the answer at the present time. But having said all this, again, here's the big question. What about the government's position on all this? I do believe, as I stated in the beginning, that the government and the military are just as perplexed about this puzzling phenomenon as the public. Will there be any disclosure by the government? Absolutely not, in my opinion, because the government will never be able to explain to the public the non-physical, or many call it the paranormal, aspect of this phenomenon. If there ever will be a disclosure someday, it will only come from those intelligences themselves, if they exist. This is Norio Hayakawa from Rio Rancho, New Mexico.